When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
Hello everyone, my name is Jose Prado with Man-Made Survival. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video. Please leave your comment, please like this video, and please share it with your friends and family. Also, please subscribe to the channel so this information can get out to many more people. All right, so the best way for you to get your family involved in preparedness, if you have a relative or if your spouse or somebody like that don't want to prepare, is by showing them what's going on, right? But don't show them and shove it down their throat. It's more like make them realize what's going on in a non-pushy way. Don't force them into it. Just say this is what could happen, this is what is happening, and this is the reason why we must prepare. All right, and that conversation can make it easier over time. It's not just gonna be the one talk and then okay, then everybody is a prepper now. No, it's gonna be time after time, and you showing them these videos, and you can say, hey, look, this is what Jose talked about today, and this was happening, all those things. That's how you can get people, or at least your family, engaged into the conversation about preparing for any scenario that's maybe going on, or in our case, throughout 2020, it's reality. All right. So one of the things that you can really talk to your family about today is that we have a very big possibility of going to war with China. All right, this is a subject that I have touched time after time, depending on how the articles come out and more information comes out. It's how I present that video for that day. But a lot of information has come out in the past few days. This whole week has been crazy with China information. And to be honest with you, I have tried to make this exact video 3 times already. But the only reason I stopped recording or postponed it to now is because more things have come out that would increase the information. And if I didn't share it now, the video that would have made that day would have become old news real quick. Right? And the whole story would not be told as it's going to be told today. So that is the reason why I haven't done this video yet until now. Right? And I'm pretty sure tomorrow more stuff is going to come out. But, I guess I'll let it build up again, and then I'll bring another video for that. Now, the past video that I made about China and the United States and all that is when the information came out that China and Russia are actually going to help Iran build their military. All right, and they're going to increase their fighter jets. They're going to increase their electronic weapons. They're going to do pretty much a whole makeover in Iran, and make them a formidable force, not just for the United States but for Israel too, which is very important. Right, which is something that also happened here in the past few days. So, but today we're going to focus on the United States and China specifically, especially with what happened today with the U.S. forcing the Chinese to close the consulate. All right. But before I get to that, I want to remind you about our store. It's the Man-Made Survival Store. You can go to manmadesurvivalstore.com and you can get your survival items from there. We have water filters there. We have face masks in there. We have all the gear you're going to need in order for you to survive, anything like that. We have stuff for EMP. I actually have a few people that have contacted me about the EMP. They never knew there was such a thing as an EMP shield. So I encourage you to go to the Man-Made Survival Store and actually look into those things, because I have a lot of stuff in there that's going to help you survive. All right. And also I want to remind you that when you make a purchase through us, you're actually helping a homeless person or a orphanage learn about survival and get gear and get clothing for the winter, stuff like that. So I encourage you to go to manmadesurvivalstore.com and make a purchase. All right, so the first headline that I have for you is this. U.S. authorities uncover massive nationwide weapons trafficking ring run by communist China to arm Black Lives Matter terrorists with powerful weapons of war. This from naturalnews.com. According to the CBP announcement from June 26, the shipment originated in Shenzhen, China, and was destined for a residence in Melbourne, Florida. Inside the shipment was over 10,000 small machine parts that function as full auto drop-in upgrades for AR-15. Natural News was able to determine that this operation was part of an attempt by Communist China to destabilize the United States by arming Antifa and Black Lives Matter terrorists. When the Civil War begins, patriots will be facing extremely well-armed Black Lives Matter militant extremists. The offshoot of this is that once the Civil War uprising is activated by Black Lives Matter, which will likely happen by November at the latest, armed Americans who typically only own semi-auto firearms will be facing off against Black Lives Matter and Antifa terrorists who have full auto weapons, upgrades, and suppressors, allowing them to operate more effectively at night as they try to pull off assassinations and the mass murder of Christians, white people, Trump supporters, and conservatives. All right, so this article from Natural News, it shows, how far things have actually come out. Okay, now, has China funded and, given a mission to Black Lives Matter and Antifa? We don't know that. What we do know is that the shipments were intercepted by customs and others, right? And other agencies. Now, that makes you wonder, if they actually caught this shipment, how many more shipments actually did come through? Because that's not the only shipment that they will have to send in. If you remember the previous podcast that I have done, I explained to you how Russian defectors came to the United States and they were actually telling the American people the plans that China and Russia were putting together to one day invade the United States. All right, and that included having weapons already in the United States. So when they get their signal or their mission, when it's time for battle, they can just pick the weapons up and go and do what they have to do, And the way that they're gonna get people within the United States is that they're gonna send them as tourists, they're gonna send them as businessmen, they're gonna send them as workers, they're gonna send them as people to live here, all right? Just to wait for that date to come. When is it gonna be? We don't know, but it looks like things are starting to escalate to where they're actually acting on their plan. Now, is China just taking advantage of the situation and kind of giving payback against the United States for what's been going on in the past few months and years through the trade deal and everything else? Possibly. But if they actually did that and it was found by the U.S. government that was the actual outcome of all of this, or, that was their plan, that could be considered a declaration of war, which things can escalate a lot quicker. All right. So the next article that I have for you, it actually backs up what Natural News had said, because other news have actually come out and you can actually verify all of this. It's not just take the information and that's what it is. No, you can actually track all of this and find out on your own. All right. Here's my next headline. Illegal China gun silencer site seized by authorities. This from the nationalpulse.com. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has seized a site that allowed for hundreds of illegal gun silencers made in China to be smuggled into Detroit, Michigan, amid a Federal Bureau of Investigation inquiry into Chinese collusion in nationwide protests. The team determined more than 350 suppressors seized by law enforcement across the county were purchased from the website and smuggled into the United States from China as automotive parts. The site, LAFOauto.com, now prompts users with insignia of 3 law enforcement agencies: Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, which is the ATF, HSI, and Department of Homeland Security, which is the DHS, and a warning that the possession of a silencer sold by LAFOauto.com is a violation of federal law. The July 13th announcement also cast a report from the Wall Street Journal noting that the appearance of illegal firearms and accessories appearing around Black Lives Matter protests across the country in a curious and perhaps foreign light. All right, so that is interesting. So now we have 3 sources that have come out and say that this is going on. We got naturalnews.com, you got the Pulse, the National Pulse. Hold on one second. Yeah, the nationalpulse.com and the Wall Street Journal. I'm not going to read the Wall Street Journal here because I don't have access to it. But, okay, so all of that is really important because things are escalating in the United States. This can actually cause a civil war. because we have seen how in Portland, in, you know, cities all throughout the United States, you know, Chicago, others, they have actually gotten worse and worse with the riots. Okay, first it was protests, they didn't turn into riots. Now it's turned into very violent riots, right, where the police actually getting hurt. But before I go into that, I want to also remind you about a article that I did on the previous podcast where I was talking about Iran and China coming together and Russia being friends, that the United States have actually come out and say that they have investigated cases of espionage from China every 10 hours. All right, so all of this is not a secret anymore, that China has actually done certain things to make us angry, and so we retaliate and do things to make them angry, and all of this has created a Cold War of sorts that it could turn into, you know, an actual war of bullets, missiles, and everything else. All right, so now going back to what I was saying about Antifa and Black Lives Matter getting aggressive, is that you know, punches are being thrown, brakes were being thrown, now frozen water bottles are thrown, and explosives are being thrown, right? Which, you know, there were, I guess you can say there were cherry bombs with BBs on them, and once they blew up, of course, it was shrapnel going everywhere, and actually some police officers were severely injured. Actually, one of them had a broken eye socket, all right? So they're escalating the violence, all right? Now, it's going to be a matter of time before people start shooting each other. Now, who's going to throw the first bullet or who's going to shoot the first bullet? We don't know to this point yet, but it's escalating to that point very quickly. All right, here's my next headline. Riots declare in Portland, vandals torch police building. Every prison, every town burn the prisons to the ground. This from theblaze.com, and I have a couple of videos for that. Here it is.
This is a residential area. We noticed criminal activity occurring in this crowd. If you attempt to breach and enter the PPA office, you'll be subject to arrest or use of force to include crowd control munitions.
7 has confirmed ATF bomb experts were called in to investigate improvised explosives that injured police officers during a protest last Sunday. And good evening, I'm Monique Minglavin.
And I'm Dave Wagner. Thank you for being with us today. Sources tell Cairo 7 some of those explosives were built to spray metal and injure officers. Team coverage begins tonight with Cairo 7's Gary Horker live at SPD's West Precinct. Gary, you have heard specific information about what was put inside those explosives.
I have. It's frightening information, actually. When those devices were deployed, lit, and thrown at police officers here, sources tell me that they were layered actually in BBs, just like these. And when the devices went off, these BBs scattered in every direction and actually injured police officers. Now, the ATF tells me anybody who actually builds a device like that could face federal charges. This was the scene on Sunday as Seattle police faced what they now believe was a planned ambush of the West Precinct. While their cameras were being blocked by umbrellas, explosives were thrown at them by rioters like this one. Seattle police sources tell Cairo 7 those powerful devices were not fireworks. They say they were small handmade bombs which were wrapped in BBs designed to spray shrapnel at officers. Among 12 officers who were hurt, one has shrapnel and burn injuries. Now the ATF tells Cairo 7 they are stepping in to investigate the devices set off here and at the East Precinct at the federal level. SPD declined to talk about the investigation, but the officers' union had plenty to say.
Those explosives were definitely meant to maim, let alone possibly kill, Seattle police officers that were following orders to protect public safety facilities.
Seattle Police Union President Mike Solon says the tactic of using improvised explosive against officers is new, and we've now seen it around the country. Police in Chicago were bombarded on Friday in a hailstorm of thrown bottles and cans. Officers later said this was a planned ambush. Most of the officers had no protective headgear, and when an explosive device was thrown, dozens of officers were hurt and one went to the hospital with a broken eye socket. Mike Solon believes the use of these explosives in protest situation must be recognized by city leaders as a new, clear, and present danger.
I'm glad that you have this interview with me right now so our entire Seattle community understands what we're all up against. It's not just the police officers. It's our entire community.
Back live here, you see some of the debris from the fireworks. ATF agents have shown us in the past the deadly damage an improvised device made from fireworks can do to a person and property. We're working on that video. It is very dramatic and demonstrative, and you'll see it live right here at 6. We're live, meanwhile, outside the West Precinct in Seattle. I'm Gary Horker, KIRO 7 News.
All right, so you saw everything that's going on in Portland. You know, things have actually escalated. Things are getting more violent. So it's just going to be a matter of time before people start shooting each other. So when that happens, we have to wonder who's going to shoot the first shot, who's going to shoot the first shot, you know? And if it's from the police, then it could be very chaotic. If it comes from Black Lives Matter or Antifa, it could also be very chaotic. And let's remember that Black Lives Matter did say, they came out and say in a statement that they were gonna bring military people to teach them how to use fire weapons and all those things. Excuse me. And we also have the NFAC, who has also come out and say that they want their own land, or if they go outside the United States, just leave them alone, whatever. But the point is that they actually challenge, the white militia to come out and pretty much meet them. All right, so all of that can explode all at once, okay? So it's not irrational for China to actually take advantage of. But if the United States sees that we're doing that, or they are doing that, that could be taken as a declaration of war. Now, what I'm going to move this into now, we're going to shift from what's going on inside the country, as the government seizing the weapons or the parts for the weapons, the suppressors and all of that. All right, we're going to shift into the political real quick, all right? But I do want to say, I don't like getting to the political part because, you can get a lot of arguing back and forth. But the reason that I want to address it is because this now spills over to the preparedness and to everything that I want to talk about, because all of those are mixed together, okay? Because you can draw the conclusion that because of this happening politically, it's a reaction that's happening within the country. That's why I think we're very close to going to war against China. All right, here's the next headline that I have for you. If you're reading this, Beijing says its new Hong Kong security law applies to you. This from Fortune.com. Its 30th article seemed to give the National Security Law, NSL, boundless reach. The text states that the NSL, in addition to covering everyone in Hong Kong, regardless of nationality or residency status, also applies to offenses committed against Hong Kong from outside the region by a person who is not a permanent resident of the region. The scope of the law exceeds the wildest of expectations, said Cora Chen, associate professor of the law at the University of Hong Kong. Beijing argues that the NSL will bring stability to Hong Kong and reinforce the one country, two systems framework established by Britain's 1997 handover of the city. However, the text of the law says its enforcement goes beyond the one country. In fact, it professes to cover everyone, everywhere. All right, so that is really important because what I'm going to get into is going to be something that is going to really make China angry. And we're making them angry and angry. And of course, it's a thing that's going back and forth. As established a few minutes ago, is that the United States is having to deal with Chinese espionage every 10 hours. A new case every 10 hours. And things, have actually increased ever since. So the United States is getting angry at China. They're doing all of those espionage economically, with the virus, with everything, right? So what this law says is that if you say anything negative against Hong Kong, China, whatever, that you're actually under their jurisdiction. It doesn't matter where you live. All right? And of course, that sounds ridiculous, but in the mind of of Xi Jinping, it is not. Now, there are a lot of corporations that own land in the United States, Chinese corporations. And they own farmland, they own processing plants. They own a lot of stuff here in the United States. Okay, and if you were to say something at one of their farms, they can, you know, kidnap you and extradite you to China. And now you're under their rule. And that was one of the reasons why a lot of people in Hong Kong, or really the majority of everyone, they were fighting it, because the law gave extradition power to China to bring them from Hong Kong. You know, when the law says that you cannot do that, but since they pretty much did a blanket law that covered them, pretty much took them over, they took the autonomy away. Autonomy? That's even the right word? Anyways, they're no longer operating on a different system. Everyone is under the same communist wing. Okay? And that also made Congress angry. You know, the House of Representatives, they actually came out with a bill that they sent to Trump, and they signed it because they were so angry about it. Okay? Because they took the autonomy? Man, I gotta know what that word is. But anyways, the point is that they took that away from Hong Kong. And a lot of businessmen from the United States do a lot of business in Hong Kong. So that is the reason why, you know, money talks, and that could be the reason why everybody's so angry about it. So because of that, Trump did the next thing. All right, here it is. This is the actual executive order straight from the whitehouse.gov. President Executive Order on Hong Kong Normalization. This HR 7440. All property and interest in property that are in the United States that hereafter come within the United States, or that are in or hereafter come within the possession or control of any United States person, of the following person are blocked and may not be transferred, paid, exported, withdrawn, or otherwise dealt in. And, you know, the order is really, really long, and that's just the section I want to focus on, because out of that, what it's saying is that any property that China owns within the United States now belongs to the U.S. government. That's going to really make China very angry. Okay, so all those farmlands, all those solar farms, the processing plants, whatever they own in the United States, it's saying that it now belongs to the U.S. government. All right, that's how angry the U.S. became at China taking over Hong Kong. So now it's a tit for tat, and things are going to escalate and get even uglier than they already are. All right. So out of all of this, a lot of people are now wondering, is the U.S. and China about to go to war? All right, which is my next headline. But before I go to the headline, I want to say, yes, that's what I have been saying for the longest time. That's why you must prepare. All right. Here's that headline. Are China-U.S. relations drifting closer towards war? This from the South China Morning Post. The two superpowers have been embroiled in an economic and technological decoupling amid an unfolding new Cold War. Beijing and Washington have engaged in a global blame game over the deadly coronavirus and are at odds on almost every front, from trade tensions to the South China Sea, Taiwan, Xinjiang, and Huawei. Worse still, the recent wrangling over Beijing's impose of a draconian national security law in Hong Kong has further emboldened hardliners on both sides, accelerated the downward spiral, and put the world's top two economies on a headstrong and dangerous collision course. Okay, so that question, it's the right question, really. Are we headed towards war? All right. So here I want to talk about the preparedness for a little while, but I'm still not done with the articles, because the next ones are a more clear telltale that yes, we are going to war. When? I don't know. But it's not now. I used to believe that it would be within 10 years. Now I believe that would be within 5 years. All right. So that significantly reduces your preparedness timeline. All right. So let's just say that you have never heard of preparedness in your life before. All right. And to a lot of my followers, I know you have heard me say this before, but hang in there. All right. This is for the new people that have been curious of what the heck is going on with China and the United States. Now, you're going to need at the very, very least, all right, 2 years worth of food and water. You heard me right. At least 2 years worth of food and water, okay? The food that you're going to need real quickly is that you have to get the storable kind, all right? And the reason I say that is because that lasts 25 years, and that's going to be the more practical one, because if nothing happens within the next 5 to 10 years, then you still have another 15 years left on that food, okay? So that's why you want to go with the storable food, because that's going to last you a very long time. Now, let's say that since the coronavirus, everything had gotten wiped out, which not entirely everything, because I still have things at the Amendment Survival Store. I still have buckets of food available, all right? But this is not a pitch. It's just, you know, letting you know. But anyways, the point is that let's say that there wasn't any, all right? I didn't have any. The plants didn't have any. Nobody had nothing, right? Then your next best thing is to get canned food. But you have to make sure that you get canned food that you and your family know how to cook and you actually eat it, all right? Now, a can of food or a can will last you about 2 years from the time you get it off the shelf. But you can actually go beyond the expiration date. Now, it depends on what it is how far you can go. So you would have to do your individual homework on, say, all right, this can of peaches, right, it says it expires in 2 years. Now, how long after those 2 years does it actually still last, you know, or is still good for? You can do your research and you can find out that it can last another 3 years. So really, out of this one can of peaches, you don't have 2 years. You have actually 5 years to be able to eat it, all right? So that's good. That's what you want, all right? So you're going to have to get your fruits, your vegetables, your canned meats, all right? And if you don't know how, you need to start learning how to cook from scratch. And then that means that you have to get all the ingredients for you to be able to prepare a nutritious meal for you and your family. That's going to be your foundation. You're going to have that food acquired first if you have nothing else, all right? The next thing that you're going to need is water. And water is easier but a little more complicated because water is very, very heavy and it can take a lot of space, more than the food, all right? Because you can get a bunch of little cans and you actually have a month worth in just a small bucket, right? But with water, you kind of have to have a 55-gallon drum, and that could last you, you know, a week maybe. You know, depends how much you consume. All right, and the math on the water is that you need at least 1 gallon per person per day. So you do the math, right? If you have, I'm gonna pull it up real quick. Calculator. If there's 5 people in your family and you need 1 gallon per person per day, you have to multiply that times 7 because, you know, there's 7 days in a week. Then you have to multiply that by 4 because there's an average of 4 weeks in 1 month. So you will need at least 140 gallons for you and your family to survive without any type of water coming through your house for a month. So you need 140 gallons. That would be the equivalent to 3 of the drums, right? Now, there's different ways you can store water. You can do it in the 55-gallon drums of water. You can stock a bunch of bottled water. You can have a pond. If your property has a stream, then that's good. You know, like a creek or lake or whatever. If you have an aquifer, that'd be awesome. And if you live close to the coast, you know, you're going to have to get you a filter that filters out the salt and everything else that's in it so you can make it fresh, drinkable water. Now, once you take care of your food and your water, all right, the next thing you want to do is that you want to get water filters. That would include, you know, gravity-fed, purification tablets, and even bleach, because bleach can help, but you have to know, you have to look up what you actually need or how much is going to be needed for however much water you have. You know, it all depends on your container, on how many drops of bleach you're going to put in it and how long you have to let it sit before it's safe to drink, all right? So all that you have to learn now. So first, food, at least 2 years, preferably storable, but however you can get your hands on. Then water. And then, you know, things to purify water with, and then you're going to have weapons. You're going to have to be able to defend yourself with them. All right, so you can get you an AR-15 if you can't even find one anymore, and you're going to have at least, at the very least, 1,000 bullets. All right, the reason I say that is because once you get in a firefight and you manage to live, those 1,000 bullets it's not gonna last you very long. If you ever gone training at the range, you know you can get through some bullets very quickly. All right, so that's gonna be it. Now, to the weapons, I'm gonna put kind of a other option for people who don't like weapons, because there's people out there who do not believe in guns. All right, the next best thing for you to have that would be rational, or would actually make sense and would actually deter people, would be for you to get you some rubber bullets. All right, it's not going to be as effective as a firearm, but at least you can you can shoot someone with a rubber bullet and it's not going to hurt. You can get beanbag rounds, you can get other rounds that are legal for you to own that would not be lethal against people, but that would just keep them away from your house. But just know, when somebody comes to your own home to kill you, to get your things, you're going to have to defend your family. And in those moments, you're going to think, or you're going to change your mind about weapons real fast. And then the last thing, which, it's a bunch of other things that you need to do, but at least the first 4 steps would be that you learn first aid. You got to learn, CPR, how to use the defibrillator, how to treat a cut and everything. But also the most important thing is going to be that you know how to treat gunshot wounds. All right? Because when these things break out, there's going to be a lot of bullets flying around everywhere. And if you happen to be in a firefight and someone in your team or even yourself gets hit with a bullet, you'll have to know how to take care of that gunshot wound. Otherwise, you're going to have a death in your hands. So that is the reason why you must know now before actually crap hits the fan. All right. So I said all of that because we look like we are going into war. My next headline says this: U.S. orders China to close Houston consulate, citing efforts to steal trade secrets. This from NewYorkTimes.com. And actually, I have a video for it. Here it is.
Consulate is basically a front for it's kind of the central node of a massive spy operation, commercial espionage, defense espionage, also influence agents to try to influence Congress. They use businessmen as fronts in many cases to try to influence members of Congress and other political leaders at the state and local level. And so it's long overdue that it be closed. What will happen is the Secretary of State probably already has demarched the ambassador, basically called him in, told him we're going to do this, told them why. Given their agents that we know who they are, 72 hours to leave the country. If they don't leave within 72 hours, they'll be arrested as spies. And then what will happen is they'll, and you'll see this all the time. Every country does it when your embassy or consulate is closed. They start destroying everything in there. They have a plan of destruction. So they'll, for us, the Marines are in charge of doing that if someone closes our embassy. So they'll burn documents and shred documents and destroy computers and so forth. We saw something similar in San Francisco. And now what will happen is the Chinese will respond reciprocally. They'll close one of our facilities somewhere in China, probably Wuhan, as they've outlined.
All right, so you heard Marco Rubio saying what he thought. And, if it really was in a spying hut and they knew about it, then why in the world did they let it go on for so long? All right, the question is, why now? If they knew all along that they were doing the espionage, that they were doing all this stealing, and they were doing all of this, why are they waiting until now? All right, that makes no sense. Only one makes sense to me, at least, that they're getting ready for war, all right? Because my next headline straight out says a declaration of war. Here it is. Republican congressman proposes legislation forcing declaration of war on China if Taiwan is invaded. This from SearHedge. On Friday, Republican U.S. Congressman Yoho announced he will propose legislation this week that would force the U.S. to declare war on China should Beijing attempt to occupy Taiwan. Yes, this is not a law yet, but against the current political backdrop in D.C., such a bill is likely to sail through Congress. If so, It will no doubt be taken as a staggering affront by Beijing. Historians will note it is precisely the kind of red line mutual defense commitments that we saw pre-1914 and 1939. All right, so it's actually there plain black and white. There's no, trying to figure it out, anything about it. China has actually threatened to invade Taiwan, Philippines, and others around the area, all because of the South China Sea and the artificial islands that China has put on there, which they are declaring sovereign territory, which of course is all in international waters. So that is the point. That is the issue, all right? It could be any of the ways that I just showed you today, any of them. Whether it's that they uncovered that China actually is arming Black Lives Matter, for further, chaos in the United States, which could be a declaration of war. If you're arming them, then you're making things unstable in the United States, right? Then they have all these weapons that they have actually confiscated, or actually the parts. But the point is that those parts we're going to put together and make AR-15s full auto. So now that I think about it, it didn't really specify what exactly it was. What it said is that it would make AR-15s automatic. So that means that they have 10,000 AR-15s already? Or more? Since that was just the one shipment that got intercepted? Maybe. That's it. I'm going to look into that. I just had that thought, and I'm going to look into it. But anyways, now we have the suppressors that came through. All right? That whoever was supposed to receive them, they got intercepted. And actually what it says is that the people in Detroit who got caught with them, the FBI was investigating, and they were told, well, I bought them at this website. And then they followed the money trail, and they found it. All right? So could that also be declared war? Probably not. But they could do sanctions over it. More things that we have seen time after time that has brought to this point. All right. Now, the whole national security law, which pretty much Donald Trump just struck down within the United States, pretty much saying, no, you don't have reach everywhere. And they're taking all the property that it's owned by China within the United States. That's going to piss some people off. Also, the fact that the United States told the Chinese consulate to close their doors and they have 72 hours to leave. And, Marco Rubio came out and said that it was long overdue. That could be a declaration of war or not a declaration of war, but that could escalate into war because Beijing has actually come out and say that if they don't change their mind, that they're going to make sure that the U.S. feels the pain. Now, how are they going to do it? We have no idea. We have different channels that they could do it. They already have their claws within Black Lives Matter. They already have their claws within our economy because they buy our debt. They do a lot of things in this country that could actually harm us. And then now, with the whole dispute in the South China Sea, that could be something else that we're seeing. All right? So, which one of all those things that I have mentioned today will spark the war? I have no idea, but it's going that direction. That's why I gave you those tips to start off with if you have not started preparing in your life. If you're a prepper, if you know what's going on with preparedness, then you need to see the areas that you have actually focused too much on and move on to the next ones that you lack. All right? So for you to be fully prepared, you have to make sure, at least to some degree, that you have the food that you need, that you and your family need for at least 2 years, the water for the exact time period, all your water filters, everything that you have. You're going to have your gear in order for you to survive a nuclear war, because this is going to escalate to a nuclear war very quickly. And now the scenarios that we have talked about here, such as EMP. Also, you're going to have your communications, because you're going to want to know what's going on around the country and within your area and your network of other people, preppers, or, just people who hold a license for ham radio can tell you. And even people outside the United States will see what they have been told that's going on within the United States. You can gather intelligence in that way. All right. Another thing is that you have to make sure that your bug out bag is set and ready to go. Your bug out vehicle, your bug out location is all ready to go. All right. Make sure you actually have more ammo, and that you and your friends are actually practicing to make sure that you're efficient with your weapons and that everybody can coordinate very efficiently. All right. So those are tips, and those are the things that you need to look into and see what you're lacking. All right. And especially the medical thing that I was talking about. You know, if you have the training down to where you know how to patch a gunshot wound, and you know you can do stitches and you can do sorts of things, then you have to move into natural medicine, because if all this breaks out into a war, more than likely there won't be any hospitals for you to go to. All right. And also another thing that you have to consider is that if there's no longer any pharmaceuticals, how many people within your group actually depend on those, such as inhalers or, you know, diabetes medicine, stuff like that that are life-saving. If at all possible, you need to stock up on those things. If not, keep them in mind when there's chaos. All right, just read between the lines on that one. So there's a lot of things that you have to do if you have not done them already. And there's a lot of things I have to do that I have not done already. All right, so the window is closing on both of us, but we must make sure that we are ready for it. All right, and of course, the greatest thing of all of this is that your spiritual life is on track, because if there's a sudden detonation somewhere and you happen to be in the middle of it, and you die, then you have to make sure that you will be going to heaven, you know, to meet Jesus Christ, our Lord, in the air. All right. So anyways, I'm going to leave things here. Again, thank you so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video, for sharing this with your friends and family, and for paying attention to everything I had to say this whole time. Please have a conversation with your family. Bring this video up if you want to. That actually would make it a great conversation starter, and maybe even get you to have a network going on. All right. So again, my name is Jose Prado, and remember, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.